Hello and welcome to my interview with Reverend Nelson Rabell-González, who is the pastor of Iglesia Luterana Santa Maria Peregrina in Stockton and also Saron Lutheran Church in Escalon in California. My name is Reverend Dr. I am the co-founder of the Clergy Emergency League, and I am interviewing Reverend Rabell because he was a guest of his representative at the State of the Union in 2026. Each year for the U.S. President's State of the Union address to the Congress and Supreme Court, Congress people are permitted to invite one guest. And this year, Representative Josh Harder, who represents the 9th District of California, invited Reverend Nelson Rabell-González, a local pastor and immigrant advocate, as his guest for the annual joint address to Congress. So, Reverend Rabell, thank you so much for coming off of this time and just going right into this interview to share with us what it was like for you. So, first of all, tell us, how did the invitation to go to the State of the Union, how did that happen?
No, thank you, Reverend Dr. Leah Schade. Always a pleasure to be here with you, my friend. It was kind of interesting. It was a couple of weeks before the State of the Union. Actually, had to make some changes and some adjustments, but it was a great honor. Came like I would say early to mid February, and I got a phone call from the office of my representative, Judge Harder, the local office here in the district, one of his staff members, and told me that the congressman and the staff, it seems to be had been a joint decision. They suggested that I would be that they invited me to they wanted me to be like the guest to the State of the Union address on behalf of the congressman to this event, and I wow, what an honor. Um, he we have had this relationship for the last few years. He had been in different events that we have done with the community town halls, and through my relationship and work with Faith in the Valley, which is a Pico, California affiliate here in California, faith-based community organizing organization. And so my relationship with him has been based on that work and his office and previous staff members who are now working with different politicians and different at the state capital or different areas, even in local politics, who have worked with him have always kind of like have a great relationship with us in terms of advocating for the migrant community. And recently, our congressman actually visited a local ICE facility in Stockton, just a few minutes
Mm.
from here, from Lodi, where I live. And Lodi is about 10 minutes away from Stockton, and I would say like 20 minutes from that. It's a local ERO, which is like a processing. It's a smaller scale ICE facility where some of the people go for their checkups, or like for their uh, well, when they have a process, they go there, and ICE may put the ankle bracelet, and they have to go there and check-ins. I would say not checkups. I'm sorry, check-ins with ICE, and that's one of the offices where they go. And sometimes we have cases where people go in, don't come out, but for the
Mm.
most part, so far, there's been some people who have been taken, but we also
Mm.
have good experiences of some of our members of the community not being allowing to keep on that longer process or deferred action
Mm.
of deportation.
Mm. So you have been an activist for immigrants for many years,
Yeah.
since you started serving, I believe in what, 2018.
Well, here in California, or
Yeah,
yeah,
in
correct,
California. Yeah,
correct, 2018,
2018. Right,
correct.
right. Um, and so you've been standing up for immigrant neighbors. Your congregation is made up of immigrants and people from different Latina communities. So you went to Washington, and not many people get to have access to the House chamber, much less the State of the Union. So, can you describe what the experience was like for you? Like, what did it smell like in there? And what were the textures of the room? What was the energy like? What was the vibe? And on a spiritual level, what
Mhm.
was it? What was the feeling like for you?
That's a great question. Let me start with something positive. Um, it is overwhelming in the sense of the security and all the protocols and of security protocols, because the president is coming to the Capitol, to this joint session of Congress. Um, but apart from that, I also got the experience, and I'm happy to say that Congressman Harder, from 6 o'clock to about 7:30, he spent that time with me. He took me to all the different. This is prior to the State of the Union address. And again, local time, Washington D.C. time, Eastern time. We went to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson's reception. I was there. I went to his office
Wow.
among all the Republican senators, and we were there. We were eating their food, like, talking, and people being quite pleasant, I have to say.
Huh.
And then we went to Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, reception to his reception, and there I was able to meet Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi had brought an African American Baptist pastor from her district, and she told me, Representative Harder introduced me to her, and she said to me, "God bless you for the work you do." And I said to
Mm,
her, "Well, Madam Speaker, thank you so much for the work you've done as well." And then I also was able to talk with and express my condolences to the Jesse Jackson's family.
yes.
Jonathan Jackson, Jesse Jackson Jr., and their other son, I forgot his name right now, but all three of his sons, two have served. One served I believe, the first district in Illinois, in Chicago, and
Mm,
from up until 2012, I believe, and then the other one is currently serving since 2022 in the second district in Chicago as Congress, in Congress. So I was able to. There's a picture I posted on Facebook, to express my condolences. Obviously, this was not mentioned in the State of the Union, the passing of Reverend Jesse Jackson, and also there's some sadness in the family for the fact that his body was not allowed to be and will not be allowed to be, you know,
in state.
yeah, at the state
Hmm.
capitol.
Right.
And so this has been also some sadness about that. But I think they were there in receiving some support and from other leaders. I also met a Methodist clergy that was invited by her congressman. And it's too many people that I met. I don't recall their names right now. I met, and I want to do mention that there was another Lutheran pastor from
Oh,
ELCA, Lutheran pastor, who was invited by his Reverend Fabian Arias from Metro New York,
wow.
invited by his representative, Dan. I forgot the representative's name, but it's also on the. If you go to Metro New York Synod, you can see the name, and similar to what happened to me. So Pastor Fabian Arias, an advocate for the migrant community, a strong advocate, was also invited.
Hmm.
So it was we were not able to see each other because there's so many people, but we were able to talk on the phone while we were in DC, kind of like exchanging ideas and thinking, my goodness. So I guess what I want to say is our church, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and not just for the ELCA, but clergy and for the community, the migrant community in particular, they were represented. There were people there. Also, Lou Correa, who's the California representative for the Orange County area. That's basically where Disneyland is,
Mm-hmm.
Anaheim. He brought a dreamer, and I met him. His name was Oscar.
Mm,
I will never
mm.
forget his name. He's a PhD in mathematics, young man, and so I think there were some members of Congress who brought migrants or advocate for migrants who were present at the State of the Union address that could, in some respect, counter the narrative we heard from the president.
Just by their very presence.
Correct.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So
But I
once,
want to say, I'm sorry, just quickly that I think one of the best moments for me was meeting the people I just mentioned, Oscar, meeting the Jesse Jackson's family, and those were really like highlights. More than the State of the Union itself was like meeting them and being able to talk with them. That was really powerful.
so in a sense that that created um, a sense of purpose and affirming why you were there, and also affirming the importance of your presence
Mm.
as an ELCA Lutheran pastor, as an advocate um, for immigrants, and as an Afro-Puerto Rican pastor who himself could have been targeted
Yeah.
and has been on different occasions. So just your very presence, your embodiment in the spaces of power, I would say was an act of resistance.
Thank you. No, I want to see it that way. I thank you for that. I think you have explained it better than I could think of. And I just want to say this, like, being there was also, in some respect, an opportunity to advocate and make it. I was carrying my passport, for example, and
Mm,
we did an interview. I There were so many interviews that we did. I can't tell you where it showed up. It was, maybe they didn't use the interview,
footage. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
whatever this for the segment. But I did remember sharing this. I think they were from NBC, and I told them, I'm carrying my passport with me.
Hmm.
And I remember the face of the reporter was obviously affected by it. Oh, I have heard that before.
Mm,
Other people from other, especially people of color, and she mentioned other Puerto Ricans as well. And
hmm.
for those of us who have our or who are citizens, and I took it out. I had a cassock on,
Hmm.
and a black cassock because the image I wanted to give or the message, the passive resistance was
Hmm.
that I was wearing like a funeral outfit,
Mm,
and
mm.
that's the outfit I use when I do a funeral or on Good Friday.
Wow.
So that's what I had on. If you look at the picture, you see that I had that long black cat.
Yes.
I thought that was the message, and with my cross, and I used this cross, which was the cross that my mother gave me. It's a silver cross, but I wanted to carry my mother because she was she was a lawyer and an advocate. So I had this cross because I knew I needed all the help I can get.
Well, then you had the ancestors with you.
Yes, amen. That's the best way to frame it. The communion of saints present.
Yeah, the
The,
great cloud of witnesses was surrounding you in that space. And yeah, so did you sit through the entire speech?
yeah, and by the way, I found out you can't leave until the president leaves. That's for security reasons. So even if I
Ah,
wanted to, I couldn't.
you you were trapped like everybody else.
That's why we were trapped. No, 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 but I stayed. I think it was important to be there and to listen and to like and I'll say this, I stood in a few moments when there was recognition of certain people
Hmm.
that had suffered, but when there was obviously or that they have accomplished something,
Mhm.
I think that's important. We say in Spanish, lo cortés no quita lo valiente. Being polite doesn't remove the fact that you can also be courageous. So,
Mm, mm,
uh, but when it, the mention of the death of DEI, or the moment where there was obviously the implication in the message from the president during the delivery of his message, that migrants are criminals, and there was like this super like xenophobic messaging. Like
mhm,
all migrants were removing and arresting the migrants who are really out there to get you and to steal you and to kill you and to make your life miserable.
mhm,
I sat down and
mm,
literally all the people around me were standing up and clapping.
mm,
Most, I would say the saddest moment for me was, I was talking with somebody who was next to me, who was from Minnesota,
mhm,
an older, white person who was very, very nice, and he was telling me about he was there because he was talking with all the leaders about fraud and all of this. But and the people around me were collegial. They were not evil to me or anything or
mhm,
bad. No,
mhm,
no. I was dressed as a pastor, and I think they had that deference. But
mhm,
when that was mentioned, there was no indication of, like, you might say, they didn't care I was a black Puerto Rican pastor.
mhm.
When the DEI statement was, they just jumped like they were a frog. They jumped like a
Wow.
rabbit and started clapping with this emotion. And then
Mm,
also in the beginning, when Representative Al Green was escorted out, when he
right. Because of the sign that he held up that said,
got,
"Black people are not apes."
hey, there was also this contempt from those around me. I could see it,
Wow.
feel it. It was like tension. And I think in some way they didn't dare say anything because I was there.
Mm,
Sometimes that's how it felt.
mhm.
And when Representative Omar and what's the other one, the other congresswoman who was sitting next to her, um, was when they were kind of like shouting back and forth with the president during the State of the Union address, you could also see some of that negativity and
Right.
like the again directed in this case against two women of color.
Right.
So, I mean, it was obvious to me there was a lot of racial tension, and literally I was surrounded. Everybody around me were, and I'm gonna use this phrase, old white men.
Wow. So, um, what was the what was the spirit like? I mean, there was obviously this tension,
Mhm.
but I'm interested to know what was the spirit in the room
Hmm.
as you are seeing these racist, xenophobic, ethnocentric hatred, this rhetoric spewing out, and people just responding to it with applause. What did that do to your spirit?
Somebody was texting me, with the time difference, and I responded. And actually, it's a common friend, Craig Lundgren. He
Mm,
asked me how was it? And I can show you the text message I said. It seems like racism and xenophobia is alive and well in the United States.
yes.
That was my response to him. And in some respect, what is almost surreal is
Mm,
that, like I said, the people around me were somewhat like, you would look at them and assume they were good people. Like it's not as
mm,
if
mm,
I would be afraid of them if I see them on the street, but there was a sense of like almost, let me put it this way, it's like when you're going to a soccer game or an American football game and your team is like squashing the other, and that that
mm,
satisfaction of
mm.
when the message was against things that people might assume has to do with people of color or migrants or vulnerable people.
Right.
Trans people were mentioned too, like
Yes.
and the president made a joke about that, like, oh, this is something crazy, like in the good old 15 years ago, we would not be talking about this, like
Hmm.
like trying to minimize the plight also the LGBTQI plus community, along with other groups. It was for me was surreal in the sense that these are human beings we're talking about, and their right to exist
Yes.
was like not taken into account in a way, because somehow there's some people who feel that their existence, this is the impression I got, their existence is jeopardized by the existence of the others,
Hmm.
or by the fact that those who are marginalized or who are vulnerable are demanding their rights to be respected. And I think if
And
you look
simply to exist.
exactly right, and it kind of reminded me back in the back in the day when you see that footage when the integration was forced in the
Hmm.
South.
Hmm.
It kind of reminded me that, or in the 1970s, the busing issues, all those
Yes.
things came into being. It came into my mind like that.
And the screaming of the crowds
Yeah,
and the just the hostility and the hatred at children,
at children, yeah.
and at, human beings who were absolutely no threat to them. So if you could have had a private conversation with the president, after having heard this almost 2 hour long speech, what would you have wanted to say to him?
They asked me that question. A local news here, CBS, asked me that question. And I think I stand by what I said. We are still clergy and we're still
Hmm.
pastors. And I use in English, I said um, a blessing and I think the word I used was blessing and denouncing.
Mm. Mm.
A blessing in the sense of, you know, for the well-being of the president as a person, as
Hmm.
the dignity he has as a human being,
Hmm.
his family, etc.
Hmm.
But the denouncing of his behavior
Yes.
and of his, and not just, let's say, behavior, but some of his policies
Right.
that are, questionable in terms of their intention, and not just questionable. We need to denounce them. They're like
Absolutely.
they have to be
Yes.
questioned because the intention seems to be almost like flowing from a replacement theory, right? We
Yes.
replace, and that's kind of like how it felt. Now, you were asking me before, how did it feel? That's how the reaction that I got from like looking around and experiencing and even looking down. I was, to give you an idea of where I was located. So I literally I was sitting on the top area where you'd have
Hmm.
uh, uh, the first family and the first lady, and then the high
The
bleachers,
balcony. Yeah. The
the
balcony area.
balcony. So,
Hmm.
but I was right in the front of the president, so I could see him directly. It was like really in front of him
Huh.
on the height, but I could see him directly, and I could see the whole, um, seating on the Congress, in the chamber, and I saw the different, senators and representatives, and when the president came in, we were able to see as he was walking down the aisle, being escorted, all that. So that was part of the experience. But I would say that the feeling is like that of replacement, like they're
Mm.
replaced. Again, it goes back to what you and I were talking about before, like the space that vulnerable people occupy means that the space that the powerful or the majority occupies, and I'm talking about the majority of terms of power and privilege, powers that be,
Hmm. Hmm.
they feel that that's a space they should be occupying, not them.
Mm.
So even their right to exist,
Mm-hmm.
perspective of this replacement theory, is that they should not even be given that little space. Whatever space they occupy should not be even granted.
Wow.
Like go back to your corner, or actually they want to push you out of the margin. You're no
Right.
longer on the page.
Right. Right. Not even on the page anymore. Wow. Wow. So as you are thinking about your sermon on Sunday, what
Wow.
message are you taking back to your congregation? What are you taking back to Santa Maria Peregrina
That's a great question. And also to Saren, because it's
and to
like
Saren? Right.
Saren, right? So I think to Santa Maria, the message is a message that we're not alone on this struggle, and that now with the injunction that they were a part of, that our synod is one of the uh, plaintiffs, and that our church was an initial plaintiff before the synod joined, and we're happy the synod joined. But the courage that the congregation display of being a plaintiff before the synod, that's also very important. And I do want to mention that it's important to know, along with Pastor Bill Canesov's church down in Fresno, our Savior's Lutheran Church in Fresno, we were the first initial congregations from the Sierra Pacific Synod who joined as plaintiffs. And 2 weeks later, our synod joined. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I can say to them that their courage. It was a
Mm,
unanimous vote by the council to join this lawsuit and to be, in a way, expose themselves, and even in the lawsuit, be named.
mm,
That that courageous act brings, yes, maybe unwanted attention, but also it's a powerful witness about what's
yes.
going on. And we were not the only ones, because I can tell them in my sermon that I met so many pastors and leaders and advocates that were brought in, and people, migrants who were brought in, like this dreamer, Oscar, and then Pastor Fabian Arias, another advocate to part of our church,
Mm-hmm.
in the other coast, which is kind of interesting, like
Mm.
not bracketed, right?
Yes, that's beautiful. Wow.
California and New York,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And New York City, and kind of like the West Coast, with my in my district, that God was truly, present in this struggle. That God has not abandoned us. That and
Yeah.
there's so many that truly want to make a stand, and even to use. I'm talking about the political class, those who are advocating within Congress
Mm-hmm.
to limit the amount, the like put a little bit of a you might say government shutdown until ICE is rein in, and
Yes.
some cameras and no masks, and warrants and protection and less violence, right? So those things are at the table, and they're like, so far that has been a part of the political discourse and political activism from members of Congress, to trying to put some to dampen some of the harm that, and hinder some of the harm being done by ICE, by the Immigration Enforcement Agency. So I think that's very powerful. I can say that to them. I heard
Yeah.
it, I saw it, in all the interviews I had. I was standing right next to the congressman, Congressman Harder, and he was saying exactly that. That was his message. His one and
Mm-hmm. Mm.
during the State of the Union was the migrant community, ICE enforcement, the need for no mask, protection of human rights, no racial profiling, and I think again that's when I brought my passport. So that was part of the statements,
Yes.
advocacy that we were doing, kind of like at a national level.
So let's back up just 1 minute. I don't think everybody is aware of this lawsuit that you mentioned earlier. Tell us about that lawsuit, when it happened, and why it happened and what the injunction means now.
Sure. So back in the summer, we were approached by Democracy Forward and Mary Campbell, who is the Amparo director for the ELCA, and to participate and join a lawsuit that would create a protection or injunction for at least preliminary injunction, questioning or calling into question the removal from the field manual of ICE of the what they used to refer to as sensitive areas,
Yes.
hospitals, schools, churches, where they are not encouraged to do any kind of immigration enforcement.
Hmm.
So we did join that lawsuit in the summer,
Hmm.
and we were hoping for the decision like in the fall, and it finally came out early on February.
Hmm.
Took a little while, but I do think that what happened in talking with the lawyers and other, well, mostly with the lawyers, seems like finally, if you read the law as well, but not the law, I'm sorry, the injunction and the opinion. So no doubt that what's been happening in Minneapolis and also in other jurisdictions, kind of like move the judge to take this limited protection. Only
Hmm.
the five synods, I believe the American, there's some the American Baptists, there's very few churches or organizations that are naming this as plaintiffs. Only those named in the injunction or who were plaintiffs in the original lawsuit are covered by this protection. What the protection entails is that, so we just basically sent to the Senate a description of our property, so they can send that information to the court, and the court then will register like the property and the description, and basically, for example, in the case of Saron has a lot, an empty lot. Saron also has a parsonage that's being rented to a Latino family. So I
Mm.
included in my description the lot and
Hmm.
the parsonage.
Hmm.
Therefore, 100 feet from that property, from our property, including the church per se, but the lot and also the parsonage, starting March 1st, uh, ICE cannot be at 100 feet from us.
So I'm hoping that that will set a precedent,
I hope so.
and that other congregations, synods, and perhaps even the entire ELCA,
Amen.
which considers itself the church in three expressions, the local, the synod, and the national level. Wouldn't it be wonderful if the ELCA had joined that
Yep.
lawsuit, and then that protection could have been for all congregations in the ELCA? So hopefully that will be something that our leadership, those of us in the ELCA, will encourage them to take that step
Yeah,
going
and
forward.
if I may maybe say something about that, if you think about socks, we call socks our mission, new mission starts synodically authorized worshiping communities. They receive funding from the ELCA, they receive funding from the Senate. So, if in terms of standing, for the ELCA to say, "Oh, we have no, we're not affected if one of our
Mm,
mission stars doesn't get rated," please, you're sending money there. You're
yes,
the
we're
expression.
all connected.
And even our congregation, just to give you an example, Santa Maria, we receive funding from the ELCA.
Hmm.
Substantial, and we appreciate that support. But for them to say, "Oh, we don't care,"
Hmm.
and we're not
You're on your
affected.
own.
So exactly, legally speaking, legally, ethically, morally, there's no good. It's no. Anyway, I just wanted to say that, get
Yes,
very out of my system.
I hear
But
that.
it's not good theology on one hand, but it's not good optics either for the church.
Correct. And it's not good ecclesiology either.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So,
So, speaking of the ELCA, 4 years ago, a now defrocked bishop of the ELCA had you removed from the roster of ordained ministers based on a racist and
Mhm.
xenophobic campaign against you and your congregation. Prior to that, a church you had previously served demanded your resignation because of your outspokenness as an immigrant advocate. And now here you are, an invited guest of a representative specifically because of your efforts on behalf of your community. So, what does that feel like for you now, given the current state of our denomination and our society? And just to say, you have been fully restored
Thank you.
and the congregation has been fully restored and you have been vindicated. But to have, for the church and, the synod, the bishop, former churches have come down on you and tried to eject you from the denomination for this work, and then to have your representative actually want you with him because of this work. What do you make of that juxtaposition?
Wow. It's you always your brilliance is is one of the reasons why I appreciate our friendship so much, Reverend Dr. Leah Schade. So I'll answer it very simply. I think on one hand, there's no prophet in their own land sometimes, and the recognition comes from the outside.
Mm,
And the support comes from like the community, and that's exactly what happened. Not just with 4 years ago when everybody was siding in, and I'll use this word in a very sycophantic kind of way. They sided with
yes.
the Senate and the former bishop
Hmm.
without realizing the kind of like the history of what had happened. That's one issue. One thing I can say. The other thing I can say is that we were today. I had my Bible study in at Saron, and we're studying the Psalms. And there's this sense always in the Psalms where, the psalmist is always praying or asking, not all the time, but in many Psalms, Psalms of vindication or
Hmm.
asking for God to intervene. That, where are you? How long will you take? Please rise up, God, and come to my aid. And then there's always this, at the end, this affirmation that because of the trust that we have in God,
Mm,
because of what God has done for us in the past, we can look back at the promises of God, the fulfillment of God's promises as an assurance, even now, that somehow God will deliver us,
mm,
somehow.
yes.
And that and even that assurance of past vindications or past fulfillments of God's promises is what fuels our hope and our resistance.
Yes.
And I think that's how it feels. I feel a little bit more vindication.
Hmm.
No, and, but most importantly, not just for me, but also in some respect, even for the Senate. And let me just say this. I'm so glad that the Senate decided to also kind of like share the good news.
Hmm.
And it's good also for the Senate to kind of like join in and see this not just as, let me put it this way, my own personal achievement, but the achievement of what humility, what kenosis can do for us,
Mm,
what that humility can do in the sense of acknowledging the harm that was done not just to me, my family, and I, but most importantly to the whole community, particularly the Latinx community in the ELCA.
yes.
And in some respect, this is a to your question. This is a an opportunity that God is giving us also to kind of like look back and realize where was the voice of God present?
Mm,
Where was it?
hmm.
Was it in the adulation of the power or the sycophantic behavior or sycophantic again support of
Hmm.
a leadership that was questionable, or was it in the voice of the vulnerable, in the margins, in the voices like yours, like so many that join in and say, hey, listen, there's something off here.
Hmm.
I think that's important for the church to kind of like also absorb. And the fact that, and just think about it in this fashion, I'll finish with this about, responding to your question is think about it this way. This is the the U.S. Congress or congressman um, recognizing a work that is, and it has nothing to do directly in the sense, him
Mm-hmm.
personally with the ELCA.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like this acknowledgement that sometimes I hope and pray the church would do, not just to me, but to people who do similar work
Mm.
in communities that face these difficulties. That sometimes you have leaders, religious leaders, but in this case, secular leaders or elected officials who see it. And then sometimes the question is, can the church also be humble enough
Mm.
to see it as well?
Mm. Well, let's hope and pray that those who put in a lot of effort to defame you and to destroy your ministry and your family and your community. Let's hope that this is a new day and a new opportunity for them to repent and to ask for forgiveness and to say, we made a mistake and we're sorry. And God's vindication is not just for you, it is for the Latina community, it is for the marginalized, it is for truth, it is for righteousness. This is for the whole church. And for a secular governmental official to recognize the importance of the ministry that you are doing is such a powerful witness
Mm.
for the intersection of the church and the public square
Yes. Mm.
that I think there's many opportunities here for bridging gaps that connect us through our shared values
Mhm.
of dignity and flourishing and freedom and respect for due process and opportunities for people to live as full human beings, contributing to the church, to society, in whatever field they are in, recognizing that dignity can be done both by the state and by the church. And when we do that together, that is an incredibly powerful force.
Absolutely. And it was kind of interesting in one of the interviews they did just to the congressman. He turned to me when he was done and he asked me, "Do you think I did all right?" He really asked me that question. And I was like, "No, no, I think it was a good message about
Mm,
immigrants being protected and all the things related to how ICE agents should operate." And I think in that moment, for me, to your point, is that humility.
mm,
I wonder if bishops, pastors, presiding bishops,
mm,
executive directors at the churchwide level, uh, you know, people across the board, in can we exercise that same humility? Um, I cannot tell you, you and I have talked about this before, but I cannot describe how important has been for whatever success I have had in ministry to be able to listen to the migrant community and to kind of like not just listen but respect
yes.
and and not pretend that I know more than they do.
Mm,
So
mm,
that has been a great lesson for me, but also I hope it can be a greater lesson for a church in just any church, not just the LCA or any community at large, to listen to its voices of dissent, but
mm.
also to the voices that come from the margins, because most likely the truth is there.
And that is why Santa Maria chose uh, the peasant to convey her message to a bishop,
Yep.
to say, I am with these people, I am with the indigenous people, I am with migrants, I am with those on the move, I am with the poor. That is where you will find the divine power. And
Amen.
so when we center that, we are truly following the way of Christ.
Amen to that.
Well, thank you, Reverend Rabell, for this time sharing what it was like for you to go into the lion's den, so to speak. You have come out, you have survived, and you are
But I
thriving.
saw Jesus. I saw Jesus
You,
even in the lion.
you did. You saw the presence of the Lord
I
in
did.
so
I
many
did. I
different
did.
ways, and
Yeah.
you've shared that with us. Thank you for your witness. Thank you for your prophetic courage, and may God bless your ministry.
Thank you. Same to you, Reverend Dr. Leah Schade, and thank you for the Clergy Emergency League for always being a voice and being in the forefront of our prophetic denouncement of Christian nationalism and any kind of fascism and ideologies of death.
Yes, yes. We want ideologies of life and
Yes.
flourishing and compassion and integrity, all of those divine characteristics. That is what we want the church to be.
Amen.
So, for those of you who are interested, the Clergy Emergency League, you can find us online at clergyemergencyleague.org. We do have a Facebook group for clergy, and you can join us on there and look for more opportunities for learning and growing and resisting together as we follow this call.
Mm.
Thank you.